Also, in case you're wondering, if I have a Keg down and I play Ledros, and they're at 3, it will kill them, because it'll try to do 2, and then the skill makes it do 1 more, so. Well, this might actually be a really rough matchup. We do want 1 Withering Whale here. I think Slotbot's fine. I think these go, though. This might be a really rough matchup simply because we're a control deck and they're a control deck, but I think they have better tools to disrupt our plan as opposed to the other way around. They've just got too many good ways, in my opinion, to kill our Twisted Fate, to bounce our units when we are going for like the Ledros combo. I don't know. This feels like it could be a bit rough.
What did we get? So much to play for. Treasures of the ages.
All right, so we're gonna go this route and just draw a bajillion cards.
Sharing, not stealing.
Double up is okay here. We're not gonna overdraw, so I think we pass now. See what they do here.
Optimal outcome achieved.
And it sure would have been nice to have him before we did that last turn. Kind of an interesting spot. We'd love to develop TF, but you don't want to do it into Vi. But because they don't have enough for the deny, I think that doing this is fine. Now, they could still answer by just killing our TF, but just trying to even stun this here, I think, is good enough.
Night falls.
And now we have to decide, do we want to use our Get Excited here, or do we want to save it for Heimerdinger when he shows his face? And this is a bit of a tough call. Legitimately, it's a bit of a tough call. I think we let this go, though. I think saving it for Heimerdinger is more relevant. And anything else we're doing is trying to be a bit greedy.
The treasure was in me the whole time.
Well, that's unfortunate that our Slotbot low rolled in such a fashion. Still a couple of turns away from Riptide being able to help us out. I mean, we do have Vengeance to potentially take this out. But then we don't have... Yeah, you know what? Let's try it. Let's see what this does for us first. We don't have a lot of mana left over after that, but we still have at least 2. So if they stop this and then they try to play Heimerdinger, we still have enough to answer. And I think that's fine. The real key is just trying to, I think, get this Vi off the board, because that allows us to be a bit more offensive. As I said, I think this is just a really bad matchup overall for us, though. Their disruption tools at their disposal are significantly better than our tools are for their deck. So here I think you get rid of the double up, just because of how expensive it is. And because of Heimerdinger making the 3/1s, you want to, I think, have these and the Withering Whale at your disposal. Alright, so they had the answer. They had the answer, which is unfortunate,
My most
obviously,
groundbreaking
but
invention to date.
Looks like
I
trouble.
think we do this. With 1 mana open, I think this is safe because I don't think they're going to risk any damage on Heimerdinger.
Oh, yeah.
Wow, I guess we really can make it rain now, huh?
It cannot hide.
I really wanted to save at least some mana to set up a Riptide the following turn. Like a Make It Rain into a Riptide. Of course it doesn't hit the 3-1. Make It Rains are just so unlucky for me. I thought about piling on the second one. I really did.
Give it a whirl.
That's unfortunate. I assume we're gonna lose our TF here soon, right? Yeah, there it is. I mean, we could have saved the deny mana for it and just passed, but
A sturdy construction. Yeah.
Optimal outcome achieved. Come on, give it a try. Searching for some winners.
let's try this. I mean, I assume that we're gonna catch blocks here,
It's too late for you.
but I wanted to reduce the number of units that were on the field to increase my chances of Make It Rain catching the Nexus by 1, because in case you haven't noticed, I've got really bad luck with this. Oh my lord! I just I can't I just can't even be mad anymore. I'm just impressed. Make It Rain is always almost perfect when my opponents play it, and whenever I play it, I can't get it to hit like the one thing I want. The one in both times where there was, you know, 4 options. It's not like they've got a board full. I just can't catch a break here. All right, so now we have to make the decision about what to do. I mean, we don't want to leave all of this mana left over. But Withering Wail here seems bad, but this is our best Riptide activator. But at least now we know for sure this gets rid of Heimerdinger, so I think we try it. Absolutely unreal. Do they have another one? Do they have the 3rd twin? They have, get excited, okay.
Rain from a cloudless sky.
I mean, it doesn't look like it's gonna matter much because this Vi is gonna kill me because I can't activate Riptide. Like, ultimately, that's, I think, gonna be the issue. But at least we have the Withering Wail to deal with these.
Celebrate.
And of course this rolls low, so it will... Oh, they're gonna eat that. I thought for sure they would eat this while it's, like, free to do so. What an interesting decision on their part. Alright, so their Vi is leveled. think we just pass.
Order rewards its fate.
But we're right back to where we were, where we don't have any good ways to trigger.
What did we get?
There we go.
Ready, Rex? Not yet! Good to go!
Well, they really didn't like that Vi, did they? We're just hard losing the resource battle. Try to say no. I mean, they still got 4 cards and a lot of mana, but we want that Vi gone. We want that Vi gone. Let Vigons be Vigons. They're thinking. Alright, so we've answered 2 Vis and 1 Heimerdinger. And they've only answered 1 Twisted Fate.
Alone, we see things as they truly are.
And that's a good play for them.
So much to play for.
If they want to use this to block the Riptide, I think I'm actually overall okay. Well, of course I say I'm overall okay with it, and then they also have the Refuge. Fine.
My selection speaks for itself.
And then Beam, okay.
Beauty charms while claws take hold.
Spin, spin, spin. You win.
Fast as wind.
You know, for control decks, both me and my opponent have like no cards in hand. This has been a bit of a resource battle, far more than usual. They have 2 cards and they're thinking hard, so they have at least something to potentially stop this. I mean, this is a risk as it is because I need stuff like this to stop Heimerdinger. But I think getting rid of this is okay, or at least attempting to. I mean, they've already used 1 to try to save 1 will to try to save their Vi, and then we stole another one. So they're running out of good ways to deal with our huge Slotbot. So we do have that working for us. Unless this low rolls with a randomization and puts like, well now. So now we have to decide, do we want to use Will of Ionia here to save my Slotbot? I think the answer is no. I was just about to say they were running out of ways to deal with it, but that's the second beam, and that will do it. This is my second Slotbot. Bouncing it and replaying it next turn lets it start slowly getting big enough to wreak havoc again. This is such a tough call. If it maintained its stats, it'd be an easy call. And if I had drawn a bunch this turn, I think it'd be an easy call. I mean, either way, we're taking the 3. This is probably incorrect. The only reason I'm deciding to use it here is I'm trying to think of things on their squad that I would want to use it on, and there's like 1 Vi left. And that's it, right? Well, I guess we'll just do this instead. But I'm just thinking about stuff that I would actually want to use Will of Ionia on, right? And the opposing Vi, like, it's not very good against Heimerdinger. So the opposing Vi is kind of it. Okay.
Within my grasp.
I mean, we'll just keep trying to poke him. But honestly, just playing it here and getting it to 2 and then having him with the overwhelm is... Wow. They got this off of Flash. Must be nice. You know how huge that is, that that's what they rolled off of Flash?
Skill and grace to tear your breath
They're down to
away.
12 cards. They're going to be drawing some fierce stuff here soon. Let's do this first, just in case we steal something worth our time. Yep, so there's the Heimer.
Bilgewater is mine.
Gangplank already being leveled up is a really big deal for us, though.
I rarely forget and never forget.
And now we just hope they don't have an answer for this or the Keg right away. I mean, we have the warning shot if they try to target the Keg, but we really want the Keg to be... We really want the Keg to trigger on this, right? Because this makes him become a Nivea
You act, but do
at
not
this
see.
point.
Spring does not pity winter. You lack subtlety.
If they actually block here, that's really interesting. Because that does nothing for them unless they're interrupting this combo. Because this has Overwhelm, so when this kills this, and right now it's slated to,
Spring does not pity winter.
then the full 6 goes. So that's what they were thinking. Alright, and they also had the Mystic Shot, so...
You die slow.
The healing saves them for a bit.
Yes, again.
But again, like, you know, for control decks, our resources, our, you know, stuff that we got going here is pretty interesting. Also, in case you're wondering, if I have a Keg down and I play Ledros, and they're at 3, it will kill them, because it'll try to do 2, and then the skill makes it do 1 more, so... Man, I bounced my own Slotbot and then I didn't even do anything with it. And we got the surrender! That is a shocker. Alright, let's go play another game. That was a nail biter. This is likely not going to go well. And even more so, we certainly don't want 2 of those. But I think we want to keep 1 for potential plunder activations, even though we have this grifter here. If we find a merchant, for example, I think having 1 of these is fine, but yeah, this has got a whole lot worse. So, this particular matchup is not good for Keg Control. In fact, this might be Keg Control's toughest matchup, just because you're meant to deal with bodies that are not as big. Once they go deep, if you are not in a position to kind of finish them off,
Don't stand in my way.
it's not going to go well for you. So we're going to do our best. If we can keep Twisted Fate alive, level him up, that's actually an okay place to start. If we can get these Slotbots up and running. And Vengeance going away there is actually kind of helpful. That also might be a place to start.
The treasure was in me the whole time.
interesting position because gold card here does kill this, but if we take the blue card, it helps out both our Slotbot and TF. I actually think, as weird as it seems, I actually think that we're going to try to take the blue card here. Alright. Lure's not great for us.
Blue as the serpentine.
Toad is actually not great for us either. As long as it was just this, and part of the reason I was okay with leaving it was we could have attacked with both of those. Toad kind of shuts us down though, so I think we're just gonna go ahead and pass here.
Function call. Celebrate.
And this is where the big bodies start to show up for them. Not the best. Now we do have our own Twisted Fate here to turn around and replay. So I think we're just gonna let this one go.
Neither the flames nor the
But
death.
I think for the time being we'll do this. Strong likelihood they try to eat this. Yep. And we'll just take our 2 damage.
Oh yeah.
A lot of interesting options available here. Outright just attacking is interesting. Even if it is just with Gangplank.
You dare slack on my ship? I'll show him pain.
And so I think that's what we want to do. They're getting pretty close to going deep, unfortunately. And again, once that happens, we kind of get wrecked. We're going to try to interrupt some of this, I think. Oh, Lord. Alright, that's double lure. Oh, Lord. Triple lure? Yeah, never mind. There's no way. There's no way we're winning this long term. We have generated nowhere near enough pressure.
You don't want to cross me.
Though actually, that's actually kind of funny that
A winner is
it
you.
keeps the reduction. All right, maybe there is a chance we can win this because we can just steal some of their better items.
You die slow.
Let's do this and then see what we pull. I mean, we're a long way from going deep. Okay. So if we play this as a potential blocker here, we lose ours, but then that's low enough that this can potentially eat it next turn. And so I think that's the right call.
Make it worth my while.
We were really hoping they were going to take at least one more action before that attack. Like we wanted to be able to take a shot at getting rid of that. The problem was if we did the make it rain on the sapling, then they still swung anyway. So there was kind of no dodging there. So next up we'll just attack with this and see what we can get out of that. Still quite a ways away from that mattering. Let's start with this.
You're not wanted here, intruder.
Like that's ever stopped me.
Open attack there was very tempting.
Dead in their tracks.
Takes them down to 7 cards. Like that's an interesting jettison. They just wanted to shuffle more in.
Water rises.
There's a legitimate chance that we might be able to mill them before we die. Alright, so we know we want to attack with this.
Gotta trust your instincts.
Alright, so they do take the block. Now, we can eat that with our sea monster.
Your ship has come.
That could be problematic. But I was going to say, or we can play the Yordle to try to do this. I mean, they're at 6. If this triggers the Allegiance, they go down to 5 for 3 cards left in deck. But we've got to survive. And with him giving all the sea monsters, I don't think that's going to be an option, so I think this has to go here.
Spin, spin, spin. You win.
Yeah, it's weird, but I legitimately think that our game plan for trying to deck them might be the only chance that we have here. Alright, that's really problematic. For a number of reasons. We're gonna try this. Cards left. So we have to survive. That's where we're at right now. We have to survive. And with the Fearsome, we've got 2 potential blockers. So let's start with this and see. Okay. So that means only champions left. And now means we actually can't mill them. Wow. Yeah. That's extra problematic now, isn't it?
Do I look like a patient man?
Keep trying.
I'm gonna gut you. I'll cut my name into you.
Yeah, now I extra don't know how we win this. Because they only have champions left. It's just Nautilus and Maokai. And they can keep stalling the drawing out by doing stuff like this. Right? Because that shuffles it right back in. So they, as long as these remain alive, will never deck themselves. And there's no way for me to effectively kill these. And I have not generated nearly enough pressure to damage them. So this is just going to be a loss. But this is a tough matchup anyway. And I think this does a good job of kind of showcasing why. But it's even worse that we got wrecked and then they shuffle in even more. Yeah, this is not going to go nearly as well as the first game did. Keg Control struggles against sea monsters. Other mid-range lists, not so much. Believe it or not, against Demacia, you're pretty solid. Against elusives, as long as they don't get majorly buffed units, this deck can perform pretty well. But I think this is, if I'm being honest, actually kind of fine for kind of showcasing what we're bad against. So if I'm gonna lose, at least it's gonna be educational for you. You got to see a good win, and then you got to see a pretty horrific loss. I mean, I had the one questionable play earlier where I was greedy with Twisted Fate, and maybe I could have stunned something, but if I'm being entirely honest, even though I feel like that was the wrong play, any extra damage that we would have generated there, it wouldn't have been enough. I legitimately feel like our hopes and dreams came down to whether or not we could mill them. And so I think we just got unlucky.
And so life springs anew.
And it's another pilfered goods. So, and they've got these. Can we steal? So Keelbreaker is okay-ish, but then we can't follow it up proper and then we die. And then even if we do play Keelbreaker here, they've got their own Plate Worm answer, right? So like we play Keelbreaker, they play Plate Worms sort of thing. But as long as this is out here, we also just kind of lose.
Know the value of coin.
He's only at 4 of 8. We really wish that we had extra mana so that we could do both of these. But right now at the moment, what we are hoping for is for them to actually kill these off for us so that we can play the Plate Worm egg. Like, we would prefer to play this before this, because all of these can just D up against. But with the Abyssal Eye there, that's also an issue. We would have to top deck an answer for that. Or have them get greedy and play something pre-attack, but if they go with an open attack, then we just lose. So I don't know. I think what happens is that we have to Keelbreaker regardless. And then they answer, and then they just win on the open attack anyway. I don't see much of a way around it. They only have 2 cards left in deck, though, to our 3. So, yeah, I think that's probably the proper play there, and I think they just pass here. I mean, they have all of the answers. They hold all the cards. Because I have to play this turn. And they'll still have at least 3 bodies. And I say at least 3 because then they can just answer with their own plate worms. And then they open attack, so. Okay. Fair enough. Don't know what happened. So I legitimately have no idea why we got a victory in that last game, because they had us dead to rights, but nonetheless, I'm going to go through my version of Keg Control is what it's now being called. For me, I'd always called it Twisted Dreadros, and I had featured a similar list on the channel once before because I was focusing on this Ledros Dreadway combo then, and even back then I was running Twisted Fate. I think I was only running a couple of Gangplanks, and now I'm up to 3 because of the Keg emphasis, but we're going to go through here and talk about the inclusions and why. So first up, Warning Shot. Warning Shot serves a lot of purposes in this particular deck. On the one hand, this is your nice, cheap, easy answer to trigger things like Black Market Merchant, to trigger things like Pilfered Goods. These are ways that you not only just make sure you keep getting resources, but also kind of disrupt your opponent's game plan at times, like stealing the treasures in that last game. So having something that gives you a free trigger is nice, but it also gives you nice chip damage, and it guarantees that in those instances where somebody wants to kill your keg and you have nothing to do, sometimes just getting a free 2 damage out of it. I say free, it does cost you a card, but you've got lots of ways to replenish your hand, so getting that chip damage in is also very relevant. It also means that you can level up Gangplank relatively easy, and so you're running the Warning Shots, and this also runs the Yordle Grifter, which we'll see later. So this is just a multi-purpose inclusion. Now, no 1-drops, because this is meant to be more of a control deck. And for 2-drops, you've got Black Market Merchant, because again, we're running goods, this card, Yordle Grifter, lots of ways to take from the opponent. And so having a body that also does it and reduces the cost is huge, as you might imagine. Deckhand because of kegs, and it's a nice solid body. I'm personally running 2 hired guns because I just really like this as a 2-drop in Bilgewater. I think that it is really powerful. The 2/3 stat line is nice. Giving something vulnerable is nice because it can dictate value trades, kind of further put you ahead. I'm just a big fan. Even later on, sometimes, if this is giving vulnerable to a smaller target, right? Like, let's say they only have like a 1/1 when you play it, and then they follow it up with a big play. Later on, that 1/1 having vulnerable can end up being beneficial if you want to attack into it with a Gangplank. So this is great for removing big threats, but it's also great even at times if you give vulnerable to something small, because you have ways to abuse that. Now, Make It Rain is great because it is removal, works beautifully with kegs, and it also is one of those ways to help trigger your plunder. Pilfered Goods, pretty straightforward, helps you draw, helps Twisted Fate, synergizes with the Black Market Merchant, etc., etc. Also synergizes with Slotbot. I'm running 1 Petty Officer. I've seen a couple versions that like to run 2, and I understand why. This more often than not produces a keg, but in rare instances, sometimes you just take the free body. But this is just another source of kegs. I think one of the reasons that I'm running 1 is because I wanted to fit in more hired guns. I'm just a big fan of this card in general. Slotbot. You're already running a decent amount of card draw because of Twisted Fate, so Slotbot, every now and then the randomization does hose you, but it is a big body that many decks run out of ways to answer. So you get down to a point where they get forced to use something like Will of Ionia on this, or Vengeance, or even just like a, huge 10-point thermal, as we've seen. So Slotbot gets the job done much better than I think people give him credit for. Anytime you see shuffle or random effect or whatever, I think that scares people away, but Slotbot's very, very good here. Twisted Fate, great with the levels up, just very versatile when it comes down. Yordle Grifter, this gives you more Warning Shots on a body. Warning Shots in this deck are almost like what the Mushroom Clouds are to Ezreal decks. So Yordle Grifter in many ways is like your 4-drop from that particular list. And then again, if you hit the Allegiance, which is actually a decent chance. I mean, you're not going to hit it every time, but you've got a pretty high ratio with this particular list. So just nice all around. Gangplank is kind of your finisher if you can't pull off any of these big splashy plays at the end. So Gangplank, pretty easy to level up with this list, and then once he is leveled up, he's like a Nivea for Bilgewater, so beautiful. 2 Grasps and 3 Whales. The inclusion of 3 Whales is relevant because you have so many kegs, and I know a lot of people have been citing them out, but being able to whale for 2 or 3 is huge, and the Grasp also increases its drain with the kegs. If I could, I'd try to figure out a way to put a 3rd in, but this list is already pretty tight, so right now, 2 Grasps, 3 Whales, and again, just keg fodder. 1 Vengeance as panic button, realistically. That's why I'm running this setup. This could easily be cut for a 3rd Grasp, but there are times where you just need to remove a threat. And so this is kind of your insurance there. And then 1 Riptide Rex with so many warning shots and or cards that make them in your deck. This is usually pretty easy to trigger, and it is like the Rasa of this list. 1 Ledros and 2 Dreadway. In versions of this deck in the past, I ran it 2 and 2, largely because you don't want people to take your Ledros and then you not have one for the combo. But I think that with the solidification of the early game here, it's not as necessary to win with this combo. This is just like a nice to have. And if I'm being honest, Dreadway, which I'm going to talk about in a minute, is actually more important than Ledros. Ledros will close out games, but you'll win more games from Dreadway than you will from Ledros. Why? Well, Dreadway. Okay, so you get a nice 4/8 fearsome. It's usually also drawing Gangplank, but the real reason Dreadway matters is, again, all those warning shots. So Dreadway, if you have 3 warning shots in your hand, suddenly means you dump them all and you're going to deal 6 damage, right? It kind of turns your warning shots into like when you're trying to close out a game with Ezreal. So warning shots in Dreadway are like the end of an Ezreal combo deck. Now, it doesn't even need to be the warning shots. Again, it doubles all your damage. So when you're attacking in, it's a nice closer, etc., etc. Obviously, if you have Dreadway down and you play Ledros and they don't have an answer for that, they just lose, period, no matter what their health is. So there's a lot to do there. Dreadway helps with things like Grasp as well, in terms of stabilizing your health. So if I could, so things you might want to consider, I'd love to figure out a way to fit Vile Feast in, but in all honesty, the reason that it is cut is because you've already got decent 1 damage pings, and because you're trying to, in my opinion, keep the ratios right for Yordle Grifter. But other than that, 1 more Grasp. There's not a lot of other things I would consider including, including or as an inclusion. Apparently turns to be inclusioning. I don't know. I need more coffee. Let me take a drink real quick. Maybe now my mouth will work properly. But yeah, in terms of other options, I don't see a lot of wiggle room. This list is already really tight. It wants to include a lot of stuff. It's a lot of fun, in my opinion, because you get to do fun keg stuff and you get to draw a lot of cards. And even when you lose, if you rifle through your deck, it feels fun. I really like, I know a lot of people hate it and I understand why, but I really like playing with this Pilfered Goods, Black Market Merchant combo, because beating somebody with their own deck is just a next level kind of satisfying to me. I don't know why, it just is. So yeah, this is the list anyway. So I wanted to showcase this, and if you made it this far and listen to my rambling and my speech mess ups, sometimes my brain just goes way faster than my mouth, and so I say things like inclusioning. But if you made it this far, I appreciate you. Thanks for watching, and until next time.